When you think of the state of Ohio, what's the first thing you picture? Big cities? Agricultural communities? Industry and manufacturing? How about a new outdoor destination for you and your family? Try thinking waterfalls or forests. Or how about gorges 200 feet deep that are 1,000,000 years old? Picture a place where the terrain reveals the effects of time and erosion, and Mother Nature turns stone into houses. In south-central Ohio, there is such a place that offers hiking trails, wildflowers, and wildlife. A place where you can see how Ohio looked long ago. Join us now as we explore Ohio's Hocking Hills. Located in south-central Ohio, just east of the city of Chillicothe, the Hocking Hills area is owned mostly by the state and is comprised of 6 state parks, plus the Hocking State Forest, which surrounds it. This is probably Ohio's wildest and most rugged region. So rugged that the first written record was carved on a beech tree. It read, "This is the road to hell, 1782. The Hocking Hills area settled into its present-day appearance approximately 500,000 years ago. But its origin began long before that. Around 320 million years ago, Ohio was covered by a large, shallow sea. Water had drained into this area from the Appalachian Mountains and deposited sediments that eventually formed a thick layer of rock, now known as blackhand sandstone. Blackhand sandstone is the most common rock in the area. 100 million years later, the area began to uplift and tilt, and water erosion began to shape the region. This process is still going on, and many excellent examples of different types of erosion are present. All of these features occur within the blackhand sandstone layer and are the result of softer zones that have eroded more quickly than the harder zones of the sandstone. This erosion has produced many shelter caves in the area. The most outstanding example of a shelter or recess cave is Ash Cave. This huge horseshoe-shaped cave measures 100 feet from the rim to the back wall. The distance around the rim of the cave is almost 700 feet, and the water that rushes over the lip falls 90 feet. The softer sections of sandstone have eroded deep into the cave. Eventually enough will erode away and sections of the upper rim will break under their own weight, causing the waterfall's edge to retreat further upstream. This is a very slow process, and an event of this kind is quite rare and has never been observed at Ash Cave in recorded history. Ash Cave was named for the large piles of ash and bones left behind by early American Indians. Examinations of this debris revealed the bones of deer and turkey, elk and black bear, and other animals, and indicated that the cave was used as long ago as the year 6000 BC. Today, Ash Cave is reached by an easy half-mile paved trail that is handicap accessible. Old Man's Cave State Park is roughly divided into 3 sections: the Upper Gorge area, the Shelter Cave area, and the Lower Gorge area. The cave got its name from an early inhabitant, Richard Roe. Depending on which story you believe, Richard Roe was either a fugitive from West Virginia or the restless son of an Ohio farmer who lived in the Shelter Cave for many years just before the American Civil War. One account of his demise claims that he died one winter in an accident. The stream near the cave had frozen over, and he was trying to break through the ice with the butt of his rifle. The gun went off, killing him instantly. Today he remains buried somewhere in the deep recesses of this shelter cave. Old Man's Cave, like all the other state parks in this area, has a rim trail that circles the gorge and a trail on the floor of the gorge. The upper section of the gorge trail begins with a small but lovely waterfall about 15 feet tall that continues to slowly erode the sandstone and drops into a deep green pool. At this point, the gorge is at its shallowest, only about 25 feet deep. The effects of erosion can be seen everywhere on the cold stone walls. You can find small grottos that many years ago may have been temporary shelter in a storm. These walls are not entirely lifeless, however. Wildflowers and other plants have grabbed a tenuous foothold here and there, softening the hard edges of exposed rock. A short distance downstream from the waterfall is one of the region's best examples of the effects of erosion: the Devil's Bathtub. This formation has been created over thousands of years, the result of the erosive powers of water carrying silt and tiny particles of sand and rock. Even today, this pothole is being deepened by the swirling motion of the stream. Although local legend says this hole reaches down into the bowels of hell itself, the truth is that during normal water flow, the depth is only about 4 or 5 feet. As the gorge trail proceeds, you'll cross the stream a number of times on steel and wooden footbridges. Further on, the cliff walls rise ever higher, and the recess caves grow even bigger and deeper. While walking through this ravine, keep in mind that except for the bridges and the trail, this gorge has remained virtually unchanged for 200, 500, even 1,000 years or more. Continuing the trail, you will soon arrive at Old Man's Cave. At 50 feet high, 75 feet deep, and 200 feet long. It could easily provide enough space for a symphony orchestra. And although the cave is not as large as Ash Cave, the terrain surrounding it is much more rugged, giving Old Man's Cave an appearance and personality all its own. A short distance beyond Old Man's Cave is the start of the lower gorge area. Many visitors don't make the steep hike down to the lower falls. Some hikers that do make the trek stop to merely view the falls and then head back up the trail. Sadly, without exploring any further, they miss out on the wild beauty of the lower gorge. Nearly vertical cliffs, 175 feet high, tower above this remote ravine. Hundreds of colors and patterns exist on the walls. All of these natural designs are the result of erosion. At the base of these cliffs, the environment is different. It's wetter and usually 10 degrees cooler here than on the ridgetops above. The plant growth is thick, vibrant. Mosses, ferns, and wildflowers find their own special places. A short but steep side trail leads to a wet weather waterfall that is rarely visited. Without exception, the breeze from Broken Rock Falls is the coldest in the region. Continue on the main trail for another mile and a half, and you'll arrive at Cedar Falls State Park. In the 1800s, as pioneers were settling in the area, a grist mill was built just above Cedar Falls. This waterfall is actually misnamed. Early settlers thought the large hemlock trees in the area were cedar trees and named the waterfall after them. Nevertheless, their error does not diminish the beauty of this waterfall that drops 50 feet. The water here has polished a very smooth surface on the sandstone, and the sapping action of the plunge pool has formed a wide recess cave at the base. If this waterfall was in an amusement park, it would probably make a great water slide. But please don't try it here. Most of the trails in these state parks are 2 miles or less. For those of you interested in a longer hike, Cedar Falls is the halfway point of a 6-mile, one-way trail called the Grandma Gatewood Trail. In 1958, Emma, Grandma Gatewood, at age 71, became the first woman to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. Her favorite hike, however, was this section of trail from Old Man's Cave to Cedar Falls to Ash Cave. Rock House State Park is probably the region's most unique destination. A natural shelter, the house was formed by the actions of water eroding and enlarging vertical fractures or joints, and it's situated halfway up a 150-foot cliff. Rock House has a corridor or hallway 200 feet long, 20 feet tall, and averages 25 feet wide. At one end, the opening or door is rather small. The other end is quite spacious and serves as a natural porch or balcony. There are 7 openings or windows. 2 are located at either end of the hallway, and the other 5 windows are situated at the front of the house. Mother Nature is a slow builder. These windows have taken hundreds of thousands of years to shape. During rainy periods, water drips from the ceiling into troughs or holding tanks in the floor that were chiseled out by American Indians hundreds of years ago. and excess water flows out through the windows. Ashes in the cave indicate that these early inhabitants used small recesses in the walls as crude ovens. After the Indians were pushed out of the area, some not-so-welcome visitors stayed at Rock House from time to time. Robbers and bootleggers, murderers and horse thieves would hide out here, giving it the nickname Robber's Roost. Conkle's Hollow is actually a state nature preserve and is believed to be the deepest gorge in the entire state of Ohio. The 2.5-mile rim trail twists and turns through oaks, pines, and mountain laurel and provides a number of excellent overlooks that are over 200 feet above the forest floor below. The trail on this rugged, difficult hike is often only a few feet from the rim, so it's not recommended for small children. The half-mile gorge trail, however, is an easy walk in the woods. The vegetation here is very different from the plants that occur on the rim above. Hemlocks, birch trees, and a variety of ferns are the ever-present flora in the gorge. The first half of the Gorge Trail is notable for the many numbers of spring wildflowers that bloom in late April and early May. Trout lily, squirrel corn, and white trillium are only a few of the species that thrive in this cool, moist forest. The second half of the trail takes on a different look. It becomes wilder, more primitive. It has remained this way since 1797, when W.J. Conkle carved his name into the sandstone on the west wall of the gorge, but not completely the same. Something is missing. The last bison in this area was killed along Queer Creek in 1799. Black bears disappeared maybe a decade later, and it is unknown when the last of the great elk disappeared. Other animals, however, apparently seem unaffected by man's presence and still call this region their home. The trail crosses the stream a number of times and passes by several medium-sized recess caves before it dead ends in a large horseshoe-shaped recess cave area that resembles a Jesse James hideout from a Western movie. Cantwell Cliffs is possibly the least visited of all the parks in the Hocking Hills area, but only because of its more remote location. The trail to the gorge area begins through a steep, narrow crack in the boulders known as Fat Woman's Squeeze. When you arrive at the bottom of the gorge, the hiking is easy, though you may have to sidestep a boulder or two. These rocks have been resting quietly for thousands of years and have become rounded and smooth with age. Cantwell Cliffs has a number of small side hollows that are slowly eroding day by day, pebble by pebble. Look for the wild columbine in these areas. It prefers the moist, well-drained habitat that the ledge and cracks can provide. In the 1800s, much of the Hocking Hills region was being cleared and turned into farmland. Drilling for natural gas and mining for coal was also gaining momentum. However, some areas like Cantwell Cliffs were too remote and rugged to be developed. In 1924, the state of Ohio began purchasing this remote acreage in an effort to preserve the wild character of the region. These purchases would ultimately become the state parks of Hocking Hills. Because of the high cliffs, the gorge spends much of the day in shade, but eventually the sun does shine on the gorge floor. Even though you may think you have the trail all to yourself, you can be certain from somewhere in the forest, something is watching you. If you plan to visit the Hocking Hills area and would like more information, please contact Hocking Hills State Park at 740-385-6841 or the Hocking County Tourism Association at 1-800-HOCKING. They'll be able to answer your questions and provide information on lodging, camping, and other activities in the area. Hocking Hills has existed for millions of years, and its beauty can surely be called one of a kind. When you visit the region, please treat it with respect. Graffiti, litter, and carelessness can all have an impact that could last 100 years or more. Please follow the old adage: take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints. This alone can ensure that this beautiful, rugged region can be enjoyed by other visitors for many generations to come. Thanks for watching, and join us next time as we explore more places found.